Okay, so you know that insane stat. When Taylor Swift literally had every single spot, 1 through 10, on the Billboard Hot 100.
Oh, yeah. Wild.
I-
Like, completely unprecedented chart domination.
Exactly. Welcome, everyone, to the deep dive. We dig through the noise to get to the really interesting stuff.
And today, it's all about the journey of Taylor Swift. We're looking at how she went from, well, not quite obscurity, but certainly not global icon status, to where she is now.
Right. And this isn't just a fan recap. We're trying to understand the transformation,
Yeah.
the resilience, the storytelling. It's fascinating stuff.
Absolutely. We're digging into the key moments, the shifts, the strategy really behind the phenomenon, trying to give you a clearer picture than just the headlines.
So let's get into it. Where does this story even begin?
Well, the narrative often starts, interestingly enough, on a Christmas tree farm in Pennsylvania.
Right, which is such a stark contrast to, sold-out stadiums.
Yeah, it really is. But apparently, even back then, there was this deep interest in stories, in performing. It makes you wonder if that sort of setting fed into her later songwriting.
That's an interesting thought. And it wasn't just a vague interest, was it? There was that moment, age weighing, I think.
Yeah, discovering country music, it wasn't just liking the tunes, it was how those songs told stories. That seemed to be the real hook for her.
Like finding her medium, almost.
Exactly. And she moved fast. By 12, she's not just listening, she's asking for a guitar so she can write songs.
Wow, 12.
Yeah, and that first song, Lucky You, apparently it already had that emotional honesty that became, her signature. Shows incredible focus, I think.
And then the legendary Nashville trips. Her parents driving her back and forth, demos in hand.
Facing rejection after rejection, too. It wasn't an overnight thing. It really underscores the persistence needed.
Definitely. You hear about the success, but not always the sheer grind beforehand.
And that commitment from her parents. I mean, eventually they moved the whole family to Nashville.
That's huge. Uprooting everything.
Massive decision. New town, new schools. All for this burgeoning dream. She kept performing, kept writing, though.
And then the break. Scott Borchetta.
Right. Spotting her at the Bluebird Cafe, I think. And she becomes the very first artist signed to his brand new label, Big Machine Records.
Talk about pressure. New artist, new label.
Yeah, kind of an underdog story, in a way. But it paid off quick. Tim McGraw comes out.
And people noticed.
Yeah.
And the debut album followed. The key thing being, she wrote those songs.
Exactly. Songs like Teardrops on My Guitar, Our Song.
Yeah.
They just connected, especially with teenagers, because they felt so, well, real, authentic.
It wasn't trying to sound like a teenager. It was a teenager's experience put to music.
Precisely. So that early foundation, it seems like it was this mix of real passion, serious hard work, that incredible family support, and just this raw talent for honest, relatable songwriting.
Okay, so that sets the stage. Then things really start to take off with Fearless.
Oh, absolutely. Fearless was huge. Still country, but you could hear the pop influences creeping in more.
Love Story, You Belong With Me, those were everywhere.
Everywhere. And then winning Album of the Year at the Grammys at 19. That's just mind-blowing. It signaled she wasn't just a country artist anymore.
And right around then, we had the VMAs incident.
Ah, yes. The Kanye West moment. Hard to forget that one.
It's part of pop culture lore now. But what's interesting is how she seemed to handle it with the kind of grace almost, and maybe even used it.
Yeah, the narrative suggests it might have actually fueled her determination, which perhaps leads into Speak Now,
which she wrote entirely herself. Every single song.
A huge statement. And you see the themes maturing, too. Back to December, Mean, Enchanted, dealing with criticism, regret, more complex emotions.
It felt like she was really asserting her voice.
Definitely. And then Red comes along and it's this explosion of sounds.
Right. Total genre bender. You got massive pop hits like We Are Never Ever Getting Back Together.
And I Knew You Were Trouble. Yeah.
Yeah.
Huge hooks.
But then also these incredibly deep lyrical tracks, like All Too Well.
The fan favorite. And the fact that the 10-minute version blew up years later just shows the staying power of that song's story.
It's amazing. But you get the sense she was maybe feeling a bit constrained, pulled between country and pop.
That's the impression. Like, she wanted the freedom to just explore without labels kind of boxing her in, which perfectly sets up
1989, her first official full-on pop album.
Yep. Even the title, Her Birth Year, felt like drawing a line. This is who I am now.
And bam, shake it off.
The ultimate response to haters, right. And Blank Space, that brilliant self-aware satire of how the media portrayed her dating life.
So clever. And it worked. Another Album of the Year Grammy.
Making her the first woman to win it twice. It cemented her status as a pop giant, no question.
And alongside the music, she started getting more vocal about artists' rights, streaming pay and stuff.
Yes, that's a really important shift. She started using her platform to advocate for fair compensation, for owning your own work, moving beyond just the artist role into being a businesswoman and advocate.
So this whole era, it's about breaking boundaries musically and personally, dealing with fame, and finding her voice in a bigger way.
Yeah, pushing limits, facing scrutiny, but really taking control of the narrative creatively and professionally.
Which leads us into a more difficult period, doesn't it? That 2016 media storm.
Yeah. That whole situation resurfacing, the feud, the online backlash, it got intense. Really highlights the harsh side of that level of fame.
And she basically disappeared for a while.
Understandably, the narrative paints it as a really challenging time, personally, which made her comeback all the more dramatic.
The Reputation era, look what you made me do.
Right. The old Taylor can't come to the phone right now. Iconic.
Such a statement. The whole album had this darker, kind of defiant feel. Ready for it. I did something bad.
Definitely harder edged. But what's interesting is you still had vulnerable moments, like on Delicate. And she became much more private about her personal life then, too.
And despite all the drama, the tour was massive.
Record-breaking, yeah. The Reputation Stadium tour showed her fan base was still fiercely loyal, regardless of the noise.
It's that contrast again. Public persona, private reality.
Yeah.
Then things shifted again with Lover. Much lighter.
A complete tonal shift, hope, romance, kindness. Songs like Lover, You Need to Calm Down. And she started speaking out more on social issues, too.
Becoming more publicly engaged again, but on her own terms.
Exactly. And then 2020 hits. The pandemic. And out of nowhere.
Folklore. And then Evermore.
Total surprises. And such a different sound, indie, folk, more poetic, lots of fictional storytelling.
It was like perfect pandemic listening somehow. Cozy, but also deep. Cardigan. Exile.
They really resonated. It showed incredible versatility, that she could just pivot creatively like that. And while that was happening...
The whole Masters issue kicked off. Her original recordings being sold.
Yeah. Right. A huge deal in the industry. And her response, deciding to re-record everything.
Taylor's versions, which felt like such a power move.
Absolutely. A way to reclaim her own work. And the fans were totally behind it. Fearless, Taylor's version. Red, Taylor's version. The excitement was huge.
Especially from the Halt tracks. And the full 10-minute All Too Well with the short film.
That was a moment. It really cemented her control over her own legacy and her connection with the fans who'd been there for those original eras.
So this period is really about resilience, right? Facing down criticism, reinventing herself again, finding happiness, exploring new creative paths, and fighting for her art.
Couldn't have put it better.
Yeah.
It's a story of navigating darkness and reclaiming her narrative, both personally and professionally.
Which brings us pretty much up to date with the Eras Tour, which is just a phenomenon.
Isn't it? The sheer scale is unbelievable, celebrating every single part of her career in one, 3-hour-plus show.
The demand was insane from the start. The whole concept reliving each era.
It's brilliant. And the way they stage it, apparently, with different visuals, costumes, lighting for each album era.
Like the pastel lights for Lover, Fire for Reputation, the forest for Folklore.
Yeah, making it this immersive journey through her music and that 10-minute All Too Well performance every night.
It's become legendary already. So emotional for the fans.
And the global impact is just wow. Cities renaming themselves, fans flying across the world, the friendship bracelet trading.
It's created this amazing community feeling around the tour, and it's shattering records, right? Highest grossing tour by a woman ever.
On track for it, yeah. Just shows her reach is bigger than ever.
And somehow during all this, she drops Midnights.
And proceeds to occupy the entire top 10, casually.
It's mind-boggling. That sustained level of success is almost unheard of. Anti-Hero, Bejeweled, huge hits again.
It really speaks to her ability to just keep connecting, keep innovating musically, even after all this time.
And her influence goes beyond music now, too. Fashion, business. People study her songwriting in universities.
Yeah, Artist of the Decade, Woman of the Decade. The accolades reflect this broader cultural impact she's having.
But when you boil it all down, that core thing still seems to be the emotional connection, right?
Absolutely. That seems to be the anchor through everything, how her honesty, her way of articulating feelings has helped fans through their own lives. That bond is incredibly powerful.
Yeah, that vulnerability, even amidst the superstardom.
Exactly. And she keeps evolving, still talking about growth, using her platform, advocating for artists. It feels like this current era is a culmination of everything she's built.
The songwriter, the performer, the businesswoman, the advocate, all coming together on this massive global stage.
It's quite a story.
So wrapping up this deep dive, Taylor Swift's story is clearly still being written chapter by compelling chapter. Her impact is undeniable, and it's a masterclass in writing your own path, isn't it?
It really is. And maybe listening back to some of those albums, knowing the context, the battles, the shifts, it gives you a different appreciation. It makes you think, perhaps, about how we all navigate change, find our voices, build our own eras, you know?
That's a great way to put it. Maybe pick an era that resonates with you and think about why. What can you take from that part of her journey or yours?
Food for thought.
Definitely. So give that some thought. Growth, reinvention, it's always relevant. Thanks for taking the deep dive with us today.